let's figure out. So we are gonna do the course. I mean the camp. So WebXR
Hmm.
camp. All right. Do you know what WebXR means?
No, is it like a VR thing?
Yeah. So pretty much. Oh, but go. Oh wait, hold on. You know what? Do you? Yeah. Go. Wait. Can you see my screen? No, you can see my screen. Okay. Um. But yeah. So WebXR. It's like really like applications on the web browser.
Hmm.
Um, but and the XR part is for like virtual reality or augmented reality on just using your browser, pretty much. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. And augmented reality. So that's what it's called. But the reason why I'm showing you why we're calling this oh yeah. So the reason why we're going to call this a WebXR camp, and but you would like to learn JavaScript, right? Your goal
Hmm.
for this summer is to learn JavaScript, um, and you're going to be a senior in high school. In high school, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So first, what we need to do, right, in order to learn JavaScript, so how to today like this whole camp I don't want to go into like I'd rather tell you how I learned a lot of this stuff and show you
Yeah.
different YouTube videos or documentation where it becomes easier for you to refer back to
Hmm.
because um in this think of this like when you're actually coding and stuff, it's like an open book exam. You can
Yeah.
anytime Google something that you forget, like oh, I don't know how to do this in JavaScript or HTML. You can just Google it and you'll be able to learn it. But
Okay.
knowing what to Google, knowing how to debug it, knowing how to test your applications, knowing how to sort of build something, right? How to learn
Hmm.
JavaScript. Okay. So now one of the cool ways, I mean, one of the ways I learned the best is I try to do it in a more project based, you know.
Yeah.
So a WebXR, because it's gonna be cool, like a VR type thing, pretty much. It gives you more definition of what kind of project, and and the cool thing is that this is also simple HTML and JavaScript. So
Hmm.
therefore, like you not only learn JavaScript and HTML, but you're also gonna learn in a more fun environment and by building different things and stuff like that. So does that sound good?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right. So let me go back to our task. Okay, so we're gonna create project base. First, we're gonna learn uh, Unix commands. Okay, so that you can navigate GitHub, your personal website, then a personal WebXR.
Hmm.
So like a 3D website, basically 3D personal site with portfolio. So think of the personal website as like your resume, and then the
Hmm.
WebXR kind of like your portfolio of different things that you're gonna end up doing, kind of like your personal little page of blog or what have you, basically,
Okay.
right? So cool. So we have projects, we have the commands. Then we're gonna go into a little bit of history of computing and things like that. So if you learn the history, it's gonna be a little bit better in how things work.
Hmm.
Also, now speaking of that, how do web browsers and applications work? So, before we start building, you need to learn like, oh, how does the browser even like show you things, right? And how does
Hmm.
the coding and what things work? Well, the browsers, the way browser, think of it like it's a computer, right? It's a computer looking at another or like trying to do something. So you're sending a command. You're sending these HTML and JavaScript commands to that browser, meaning the Google Chrome or the Safari or whatever. This Chrome browser is like an application that renders that code into a website or game or whatever the case may be. So first, we're going to take a look at HTML. We're going to
Yeah.
specifically focus on the free code camp section. So we're going to do that one together, which is like we get started for free. It's the HTML one pretty much.
Wait, but
Then
like when I was looking at it,
yeah,
there's one called Web Design Certification,
yeah.
and then there's one called JavaScript Algorithms.
Hmm.
So which one would we do?
Um, we don't have to do those because they're very specific to other things. We only have to do really the section that says HTML. You remember
There's
the
no section
cat?
like that.
What's that?
There's no section like that.
Oh, I know which one it is. I'll find it for you. No, all good. I think I know which one it is. So I'll like kind of create notes and slides and things like that, and we can kind of go through it together when we get to that, basically.
Okay.
But like before we get to that level, that's why I want to kind of get through all of these earlier things because it's gonna sort of make sense once you start coding, right? Then we're gonna do HTML and JavaScript with AFrane to build a VR scene, pretty much. So that's pretty much covers the entire thing. And the one of the things is like the other like one of the things is like learn how to learn and how to read code. You know,
Okay.
and documentation APIs. If you see something like yeah, so that's one of the things where hardly anyone kind of talks about, but like think of it this way, right? Yeah. So like this one, sorry, A-frame. You see how they have like the APIs. Okay, so these are like the so a lot of these JavaScript frameworks, they will have documentation. So
Yeah.
it's important. Like it's kind of like if you don't understand how to read this and how to implement it on your code, then it's going to be very hard for you to kind of do things on your own,
Yeah.
right? So it's not like our like how we learn in school and stuff where like you know you have to memorize everything and things like you so you don't have to necessarily memorize things. You just have to like understand how and how this works. So for example, I'll give you an example. How do we add a 3D model to the scene? Okay.
Okay.
So this is an HTML tag. If you see, right? It's giving you ID to the path of the GLTF, and then
Okay.
this is type. We'll get to. It might be a little confusing right now, but we'll get to that later. But that was my point of one of the key point is how to learn and where to get all this where to access free open source projects and things like that. Cool.
So
Go
how
ahead.
long did it take you to learn this?
Oh, for me, it took me like 6 years. It took
Oh
me a
wow.
long time. I'm basically giving you all the tips and tricks that I learned over the 10 years or whatever, and all my jobs and all the different things. Like, if I were to do it again, if I was 16 years old, 17 years old, I would, this is what I would teach myself so that I could make like cool things and not waste like half of my life doing random things that doesn't even interest me anymore.
So wait, so it took you 6 years itself to learn JavaScript, or like?
No, not necessarily in terms of like learning it. Think of it like first you have to learn to read the alphabets. Then you have to learn how to read the
Yeah.
sentences. Then you have to how to learn how to create paragraphs. Then you have to learn how to create an essay. And then you can write a book. So
So how,
what go ahead, go ahead.
so how exactly did you learn it then? Did
So
you like use
essentially,
websites?
starting from very beginning, that's essentially this. There's Unix commands. You remember how we were doing the terminal commands? Because
Yeah.
right at the end of the day, a computer talks to each other, or the services talk to via command lines and stuff. So very
Okay.
important to know. how to work with this command line system, like how to navigate directories. Like for example, if I want to go to CD into movies, I can
Yeah.
CD and I can see, oh, like what's in there, right? I can go
Okay.
back up. I can say, okay, I want to go see document, and then I want to see ls minus ltr, and you can see all types of information which are relevant and things like that. So, one key thing, just as a while we're at this, so for example, one very simple kind of example where I can give you is like you can clone repository, right? Like let's say like you clone. Like this is my project, and if you want it, like you can do this: git clone it,
Mm-hmm.
and then you would say git clone that, and it will import all of the
Open
project
projects.
files and everything like that into your directory, and then you can work on it on yourself. So for example, what did we just download? Daily automation. So I'm like, okay, well, where is daily automation? Can you see it? Let me just see daily. Oh yeah, yeah, okay, I see it. Daily automation, right? So then I do
Mm-hmm.
code that so that gives you the IDE. So IDE is basically don't get it too confused with it. IDE is basically like an application to write your code,
Okay.
pretty much. I'll show you. So basically, this is the VS Code. If you go to VS Code, and you can just simply download it, and then it allows you to read code and build code pretty much, right? So you're gonna use this to create your HTML and JavaScript and things like that.
Okay.
So does that make sense?
Yeah.
Right? So like for example, what doesn't like let's kind of like dig through it, right? What does a JavaScript file look like, right? What does it do?
Okay.
So like a very simple example, I'm gonna read through this, okay, and then we'll
Mm-hmm.
see it in action as well. Okay? So it's a very like if you read, it's not gonna be that hard to understand. But like take a look at this, right? So the side app visit, it's just an API call. So just think of it like that. So we're using Cypress, which is a JavaScript framework, and this is what we're doing. But what are we doing? First, we're going to visit this URL, okay? Then
Okay.
we're gonna wait like 6 seconds. Then we're gonna scroll down on page. Then we're gonna scroll down. Then we're gonna scroll down with wait 6 seconds, scroll down, wait 6 seconds. Then click on the next page, then scrolls. Okay, so let's see that in action. Okay, let's see that in action. So what we're gonna do is say Cypress dot open, and this is essentially how JavaScript applications work, and sort of, because here's the thing: you don't like the code, you for the most
Mm-hmm.
part you can find it open source. It's what happens is, like, think of it this way, right? You can get the alphabets and sentences from anywhere, right? But it's
Yeah.
how you kind of write those paragraphs and create a story or create a something out of it. That's what it kind of matters. So that's how and that's why it's called language, right? You probably heard like, oh, this is C# programming language and Python programming language. So like the reason
Yeah.
why it's sort of like they're all of them, like once you know one of them, you'll kind of get the other ones too as well. It's just like they sort of just do the same thing a little bit different way, or different syntax, or different like commas, or things like that pretty much. Um, but we'll go through all of this stuff during our camp.
Mm-hmm.
So let's finally decide the timing of it, which will be Wednesdays. Wednesday. What time?
I mean, it depends on your work.
This time is good. You want to do like 9:30 p.m. to like 11 p.m. or ten
Anyone will
thirty? I
work.
don't know. What time do you go to sleep?
I mean, I go to sleep late on December 10th.
Okay, so does that 11 or 10:30? You want to do an hour or hour and a half?
I think an hour would be enough.
Okay, fine. All right, we'll do an hour. Yeah, I think maybe less than an hour. Okay. Basically, what
Alright.
I want to try to do is we'll go step by step of each of these things, and
Okay.
so If it takes a little bit longer, we'll take a little bit longer depending on how how everything is kind of progressing and stuff.
And when are we planning to start this?
Let's do next week, so I'll get some time to prepare.
Okay.
So let's start from like next week, and in the meantime, I'm gonna put some links up or this frame room. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's set up the frame room. Come to like outside. Like outside over here. So what we could do is over here. Um, yeah, over here. I'll give you permission. Over here, like add a bunch of things, like all the things that we just kind of. Here's what I'm gonna
Hold on.
just Wednesdays at 9:30. Yes. So cool. I'm just gonna take a picture of this. Uh, not 3, 4. Where'd you go? Oh, you're right
Already.
there. Okay. So I'm gonna add these tasks, and then you can just kind of do. In the meantime, go look over the free code camp. Make sure you have an account. Make sure you have a GitHub account. Make sure you have downloaded VS Code. Um, all of that kind of stuff. Like like prep it basically.
Okay. So like,
Does that sound good?
yeah. Also, one thing, like, so
Yeah.
like when I'm in India, and stuff, right? So like, I want to learn JavaScript little when I'm there as well. So I might not be able to attend a meeting. So what should I like? What website should I use for that?
No, no. So that is why I'm like recording this entire camp. So let's say you're not there, and if like say someone else wants to join and they want to join and stuff. So what I'm gonna try to do is like just continue on, even if you're not there. But all of these sessions will be recorded and then put on YouTube, so that anyone can kind of look it over, and then all of the documentation, all of the code, and all of that stuff we're gonna put it here in this frame so that you can come in and then take a look at it and things like that. So and other people can come look at it and yeah. So does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes
Okay,
sense.
cool. So that way, like, and to be honest, like, I mean, I don't have that much time to be spending like the whole time like creating a course and all of this. But this way, it's like a more creative. Think of it more creative. Like no pressure. Do what you can. Because here's the thing. Like I said, right? It took me so long to learn. Even though I had a job, I was working with developers and things like that. Because
Yeah.
thing is, it's it's hard when you're learning the language and things, right? If you're learning Chinese right now, how hard would it be? Because you don't know how to read, you don't know how to write, you don't
Yeah.
even know how to like whatever like understand or what have you. It's the same kind of concept. It's just that it's don't be afraid of it. Pretty much don't think like coding is hard or like I'm not gonna get it or all that kind of stuff. It's very very easy, and that's my whole goal of this camp kind of thing is like to kind of bootstrap this learning so that once you see the final product, then you're gonna be like, oh wow, that is cool. How do I make this? And then so forth. So then you're gonna learn, oh, I need to download this JavaScript framework to do this specific thing. So
Okay.
we'll kind of go into a little bit more. So how about this next Wednesday we'll come back
Okay.
and I'll have a lecture ready by then.